Welcome, everyone. Dr. Michael Gaeta here. Greetings to you. Wanted to share with you an important new study in this episode of The Conscious Clinician. And it's a very significant study that I wanted to share with you about a very important trace element. And this is zinc. This is a study that just came out. And the findings, honestly, are pretty remarkable. So I just wanted to jump into that with you. This is an offering of the Gaeta Institute for Holistic Health Education and the Gaeta Clinic for Chinese and Functional Medicine. And our motto here is nature first, drugs last. So we operate a clinic, an online school to teach holistic health to the public and training in natural functional medicine to health professionals. So this study just came out a couple of weeks ago now. So this was 3 weeks ago, so it's very current, published in Biological Trace Elements Research. And this study is called Zinc Deficiency is a General Feature of Cancer, a review of the literature. And I'm going to put in the description under this video the link directly. Thankfully, this is a full text, not just abstract. So you can see the details of this study and read the whole thing. We're just going to give you a brief introduction with some practical application. We just went over this study in our cancer course. And we have a cancer course that we run ongoingly with live monthly calls. And it's at cancercourse.com. And this is an ongoing course with several faculty and live monthly calls to present new research like this study we're looking at today, and also to answer questions from students. So this is available for you. I highly recommend this course. It really will give you an enormous amount of information on how to increase cancer resistance for yourself and if you're a health professional for your patients. So it's a fabulous class. We've been running it for a number of years, and it's one of our more popular courses. So just last week, when we did the monthly class for the cancer course, we went through this study. And I thought, I think I'd like to share this with the public just so people can benefit from it. So zinc deficiency is a general feature of cancer. And this study is very significant. And they point out here, and just amazingly, that zinc in this literature review, so they did a review of the published literature on this subject of zinc and cancer. And I love these type of systematic review type papers because they save us a lot of time. They look at, typically they review hundreds of papers, find the ones that are relevant on a particular subject, and present that in a published paper reviewing that literature. So zinc has been known for decades as an essential trace element. We have 4 macrominerals, major minerals, calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, and then we have a bunch of trace elements or trace minerals, including zinc. And zinc is an absolutely essential mineral for immune function and many other features in the body, hundreds of functions in the body. So this study remarkably found that the literature supports evaluating zinc deficiency as a diagnostic tool in cancer. So as well as predicting prognosis, like if you have cancer, how's it going to go? What is your likely outcome of this cancer diagnosis? Well, we can evaluate your zinc status as a way to find that out. One way to tell what your prognosis is with cancer. And so it has a diagnostic, a prognostic, and also looking at the potential for zinc being involved in cancer prevention and treatment, which is quite remarkable. So let's look at this, and I'll give you some practical tips for how to apply this remarkable study. I've been teaching the importance of zinc for decades, over my last 30 years of teaching and my last 33 years of practice of Chinese and functional medicine. And this study was so important because it really even elevated zinc beyond what I had realized before, which was pretty high, high importance on this mineral. So we discussed preliminary findings indicating zinc level measurement could ultimately become a useful tool for cancer diagnosis and predicting outcomes, in other words, prognosis, in patients with cancer. I mean, that's remarkable. That is just remarkable. So they give you an introduction to zinc, and I'm going to do kind of my own of that. And then they go through some of the functions of zinc in the body related to immune function. So if we look at this little chart here, it's not that complicated. We can see where they talk about immune response, and this is part of our resistance to infection. Apoptosis, which is part of our resistance to cancer, and that's the programmed cell death of damaged or old cells. Protein folding, so that's kind of tissue integrity, I guess, at a basic level, at a cellular level. How strong is our body structure at that very cellular level? And what we call cytoprotective activity. Antioxidant is not a great word. Cytoprotection or cell protection is a much better term than antioxidant. That's a very misunderstood concept, better understood as cytoprotection or cell self-defense. So they go through all that, and then they talk about zinc deficiency in this next section and cancer. And what did they find? They looked at 2,500 articles on cancer and zinc up to this year, 2023. That's remarkable. And then they just selected the most useful, valid, high-quality studies that were relevant to this subject. And they ended up, out of that 2,500, with 150. That's a lot of studies, articles that were relevant and of high quality. So that's pretty significant. And then they went from there. And in the next section, they kind of summarized their findings. And the first section they looked at was zinc deficiency and esophageal cancer. Not a very common cancer, but certainly does happen. It's a little more common in smokers, but others as well. And esophageal cancer, very well established relationship between zinc deficiency, low levels of zinc, and esophageal cancer. Zinc deficiency promotes, a large body of evidence indicates that zinc deficiency promotes carcinogenesis, cancer development, by altering microRNA expression. Now, microRNA are very small, non-coding RNA. Now, most RNA will code for DNA, which will then help assemble the protein. And this is, very important relationship of gene expression. So microRNA you can think of as non-coding RNA that regulates gene expression. So we have our genes in our cells, in a nucleus of the cell, and how those genes express is regulated in large part by microRNA. And zinc is a big part of microRNA expression, meaning how our genes express themselves, which genes get activated, which genes remain silent. This is part of what microRNA does, and zinc has a role to play with that. So that's pretty significant. Then they went to a very significant, it's a third of cancer in women, roughly, is a zinc deficiency in breast cancer. There is considerable evidence for an association between zinc levels in tissue, and we'll talk about how to measure that, and serum, we'll talk about that too, and breast cancer, as demonstrated by many recent studies of zinc levels in a variety of patient tissues. So this is very significant. And one of the things that we need to talk about is the relationship of copper to zinc. And the punchline there is they're both very important. And and since most people have some degree of copper deficiency, we need to include that and not just take zinc alone. That's a common kind of nutritional and functional medicine mistake, is to give zinc without copper. Sometimes iron is involved as well. So it's really neat that they looked at the copper to zinc ratio. We're going to look at that as well. So that was clear evidence, clear indications that low zinc related to breast cancer. And then they looked at several meta-analyses, which are a study of study, compiling data from a lot of different studies to come up with more robust, valid conclusions regarding zinc deficiency in breast cancer. And they went through all that. And they had very significant findings. And they looked at hair samples, which is one of the best ways, if not the best way, to evaluate your mineral levels. So they found zinc levels in hair samples from breast cancer patients were lower than those in hair samples from the control group. And very significant, they reported no significant difference in serum zinc levels between these two groups. That phrase, that little section there, is very important, underlining something I've taught for many years, which is that hair levels are more reliable than serum levels in the blood for measuring minerals specifically. Serum mineral studies aren't that great. They're okay, they give you some information, but looking at either red cell levels, the amount of minerals inside the red blood cell, and even better, hair analysis is much more important, much more valid, much more useful, because it's what's bioaccumulated in the tissues. It's a stable measurement. It's a cellular reading, not just a blood test. So that's really significant. So doesn't mean there's not a place for serum testing, but RBC levels, red cell levels, and hair levels are really the best for evaluating these very essential minerals, zinc, and its buddy, copper. So then they also looked at more studies that came out after that, those meta-analyses, and that was since 2015. So more meta-analyses or more studies have come out since 2015. And what they found was that the zinc levels and the zinc to copper ratio is very significant and different in breast cancer patients. So that's a pretty big deal. Taken together, these meta-analyses and clinical studies build on the existing evidence for a correlation between breast cancer and zinc deficiency. So now we know esophageal cancer, very highly correlated with zinc deficiency, and now we know breast cancer, highly correlated with zinc deficiency. So that's very significant. Now I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to do a little bit more on zinc, and this is an excerpt from one of my seminars on this subject of zinc, and then we'll jump back into the study and finish it up. So this is all about zinc evaluation and replenishment. This is an excerpt from this seminar. Teach this as part of the cancer course, the cardiovascular course, the digestion course, and the autoimmune course. So that's all part of it. So zinc is part of both our innate or cellular immunity that has to do with phagocytes, natural killer cells, and epithelial barriers. Zinc also relates to the acquired or adaptive immune system, which is largely our antibody-mediated immunity. So that's very important. And on top of that, zinc has an enormous role to play in wound healing, skin health. A lot of folks' skin will improve. One of my students, who's a specialist in dermatology using Chinese medicine, found that she got about a third faster results in her skin health practice, treating patients with skin disorders. Her results improved by a third. So she got the same or better results in a third less time if she added zinc assessment and replenishment to her treatment. So now she was getting good results with Chinese medicine for sure. And now she gets much better results combining zinc assessment and replenishment in treating folks with skin issues, psoriasis, eczema, and so forth, many different skin conditions. Also, wound healing. Folks who take a while to heal from they cut themselves, takes a long time to heal. Sometimes the issue is zinc. Cardiovascular function. We know in the literature, we talk about this in the cardiovascular course at cardiocourse.com. Cardiocourse.com. We talk about that zinc that zinc replenishment can improve the health of the heart. The heart muscle actually is healed better and stronger when zinc deficiency is corrected. So on top of that, mineral absorption, especially copper and iron, requires zinc. Those are the three musketeers. Body temperature control, which is largely regulated by the thyroid. And zinc is one of the 5 minerals necessary for thyroid function. The others are iodine, selenium, calcium, and iron. Fertility in men and women, reproductive health is significantly affected by zinc status. And having about an 80% success rate over the last 33 years of family practice in Chinese and functional medicine, working with couples who are having a hard time having a baby, which is a massive problem these days. We have huge issues with impaired fertility, and this has accelerated and gotten worse with the experimental COVID shots. There's very strong evidence related to decreased fertility, increased miscarriage in folks who have received these experimental mRNA injections. So that's a concern as well, especially the last few years. But even before that, we had a massive problem. The average American male, for example, is subfertile, according to the definitions of male fertility based on sperm count. The average American male, for the first time in history, is subfertile, below 40 million sperm count. Whereas, not too many decades, a few decades ago, it was 100 million average. And now it's below 40, and 40 million is the threshold of subfertility. DNA synthesis, we talked about that. Protein folding, protein formation, DNA synthesis. Cell division, we call that mitosis. And so it basically has to do with tissue, new cell and new tissue formation. Protein synthesis, we talked about. Growth, tissue repair, wound healing. Apoptosis is an oxidative process which happens tens of millions of times a day, where the cells are enzymatically destroyed that are unhealthy or damaged or sick or precancerous. They are programmed to self-destruct. And that is our main defense, one of them, against cancer development is our apoptotic function. And it requires oxygen, it requires calcium, it requires zinc, among other things. By the way, also, our phagocytosis is also an oxidative process, main way we prevent infection. Cytokine production, there are pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory cytokines. These are signaling proteins that kind of directs the immune system to do what it needs to do in certain situations, such as infection or injury. Cardiovascular function, the heart really needs the zinc for the heart muscle to be happy. So zinc is a big deal. Zinc is a big deal. Now, how would you know if you had a zinc deficiency? Well, there's a bunch of symptoms here. I bolded the ones that relate to digestion, but related to this subject of cancer, which is the subject of this paper, that's another big deal, partly due to its ability to enhance immune function. And also, it is part of our cell protection. And there's a cytoprotective pathway, which zinc helps to activate, which is the nuclear erythroid factor 2 nuclear transcription factor, which is NRF2 is the abbreviation, NRF2. And this is a cell protective pathway that is the master switch of your cellular defenses. And mostly what activates NRF2 is our plants. Plant medicines are well established in activating NRF2, things like turmeric, green tea, rosemary, all of which, by the way, are plant medicines that help to increase our cancer resistance. So now we've known that folks who consume turmeric, green tea, rosemary regularly tend to have less cancer. But now we know a little bit about why. Is that one aspect of it is this pathway being optimized or induced or primed or supported by these plants. There's only one thing we know of that's not a plant that improves this master switch of cellular defenses, NRF2, which is zinc. So zinc is absolutely critical in this regard. As well, zinc also is critical in our autoimmune defenses and our immune tolerance. And we talk about this in detail in our autoimmunemasteryprogram.com. And you can go to autoimmunemasteryprogram.com to learn more. And zinc is part of our mechanism of what we call immune tolerance, which is where immune tolerization or immune tolerance is an aspect of the immune system that tells your immune system not to attack your own body cells. And so it's the don't shoot signal from your immune system to not direct your immune response against yourself. And that breaks down when you have a zinc deficiency. So zinc is definitely part of our autoimmune prevention. So as I mentioned, fertility, men and women. So reproductive function, fertility, sexual function, desire, performance, all of that has a relationship to zinc. Also, and this happened with COVID, when people became ill with this laboratory-created bioweapon, one of the ways it multiplies itself, this man-made virus, was by using zinc. And so people who had a sufficiently high SARS-CoV-2 viral load, and it would eventually exhaust their zinc reserves, and they would lose their sense of taste and smell. So loss of taste and smell with COVID syndrome caused by SARS-CoV-2 laboratory-created bioweapon was an induced zinc deficiency. And very interestingly, these folks would recover. I've treated many patients since in the COVID times who lost their taste and smell, and it came back pretty quickly within days or a couple of weeks once we replenished them sufficiently with zinc. The zinc also is part of our immune defense against the COVID syndrome. A lot of literature about that, along with vitamin D and quercetin and Chinese wormwood and black cumin seed. A lot of very important things. That are natural, that help enhance the body's resistance to disease and infection. So if you or somebody you know has one of these symptoms, kind of important to check out if a zinc deficiency might be involved. Clearly, all of these things can be caused by something else other than zinc deficiency, but zinc is a simple, easy, cheap thing to assess and correct as a possible cause of any of these and other symptoms. Related to digestion, zinc is necessary to produce an enzyme called carbonic anhydrase, which really helps regulate your pH in your whole body. So some folks are too acidic, some folks are too alkaline, and zinc helps to regulate that through its participation in creating this enzyme, among hundreds of enzymes that it's involved with. And it also helps you make stomach acid. So if your zinc is low, you won't make enough stomach acid, and then you may become anemic or osteoporotic or develop gut infections and other maldigestion, malabsorption problems. So zinc related to digestion, most people don't realize that, but zinc is very key with digestion. So how do you evaluate your zinc status? The first thing is to do a zinc taste test, and it's and the one I use from Standard Process. It's called Zinc Test. And then there's a hair analysis. Now, if you're a practitioner, just send us an email at support@michaelgaeta.com, and we'll send you a practitioner kit if you're a licensed health professional, and how to incorporate this into your practice. And you'll get 2 free tests as a practitioner. If not, if you're a patient, no worries. Just email us at support@michaelgaeta.com, and we will send you a hair kit. And then you can test, all of your nutritional as well as your toxic elements, the bad guys like mercury, aluminum, cadmium, arsenic. And these are important ones to check. And then in the blood, I don't really use serum testing. I definitely use a much more stable, reliable test of red blood cell or RBC zinc. So the zinc taste test, we can thank this great man, Dr. Derek Price Smith, a British toxicologist and biochemist. And he wrote a book called The Zinc Solution, which you can get. And he was the chairman of organic chemistry at the University of Reading in England. And he was, we can thank him in part for getting lead out of gasoline and paint, which he was criticized for at the time in the 70s. And then when everybody realized he was right and just ahead of his time, he received a silver award from the prestigious Royal Society of Chemistry. So he was really the first biochemist to really look at zinc as a significant factor. And this is back in the 70s. So he was in 80s. He was way ahead of his time with understanding the importance of zinc. And he came up with the zinc sulfate in water test that you can do at home. And just let us know. And look in the description of this video for how to order the zinc test that was originally created by Dr. Price Smith. And then you can test yourself and everybody else at home. In addition, so everybody should do this test. Everybody should also check their hair analysis. And that's a very, very important test to do, to check for nutritional minerals and also the balance of those minerals, including zinc to copper. That's one of the ratios they looked at in this research study, was hair zinc to copper ratio. Very important ratio, which I call the genitourinary ratio, because it relates to kidney, bladder, sex hormones, reproductive function. And that balance of zinc to copper is very important to a lot of things in the body, hormonally, immune-wise, and a lot of other things, and including cancer risk as well. So, and then we will send you, well, here's how you do it. You just hold the zinc test in your mouth for 30 seconds. You notice the timing and intensity. If you're good, it'll have an immediate bad taste. If it's delayed, mild or absent, then to that degree you have a zinc deficiency, most likely. I always like to back that up with the hair analysis, looking at the cellular reading, the cellular level, not the blood, but the cells levels of this critical mineral. And yes, you can do a blood test in addition, but it wouldn't really replace the hair analysis. That's the most important. And this has been validated now in hundreds of studies as being a very reliable way to check your zinc levels. Very, very important. So with that, wanted to give you just a little interpretation guide and what I do with my own patients in my own practice over the last 33 years of how to correct a zinc deficiency in a balanced way that does not ignore copper or iron or the other trace elements. So here's how I do it. And if you have no taste at all, that's the worst, where you have an absent taste. It turns out usually about 15 to 20% of audiences that I do this test with, they have no taste at all. It's really, really not good. So trace minerals B12, this is a standard process formula, and I'll give you a link to that exact formula that I take and give to my kids and my patients. You always have that as the foundation. That will give you a ratio balanced zinc, iron, and copper with about 40 other trace elements, 40 other minerals built in. That's the foundation. And then we add to that, since we covered our copper and iron, then we can add some additional zinc chelate at a bigger dose. So again, this is just what I do. I'm not giving you medical advice. I'm not, this doesn't replace the care of your medical doctor or health professional. I'm just sharing with you what I do in my practice. And but again, I'm not saying what you should do, or this doesn't replace the care of your health professional or medical practitioner. And this is just the guide that I use myself with my own patients in practice. Now, if you're borderline, where you've got a very mild taste, delayed, maybe even sweet, then we have 3 and 3. 3 trace minerals, B12, TM is trace minerals, and then zinc chelate. If it's good, you've got it takes a little bit, it takes a few seconds, but it gets strong. Then 3 trace 2 zinc. And if you're optimal, this is a basic maintenance, then just a cup, 2 or 3, preferably 3, minimum 2 trace minerals, B12, just to maintain, because you're in good shape. And that is, that's good. That will help sort you out. Now, what I wanted to talk about next is diet. Again, diet is the foundation of our nutritional care, which is diet and supplements. Diet is the foundation. So I want to share with you some foods that are just good to eat, period. They're just great foods that also happen to be good sources of zinc. So let's look at some foods that are good sources of zinc that also will contain other minerals and nutrients as well. They're just good foods to eat, and these are all whole foods that are great to eat. So grass-fed beef, bison, fabulous, one of the best, especially if you can get the organ meat. The grass-fed beef or bison liver is the best, organ meat for mineral deficiencies. So liver's the best. If you're eating the muscle meat, that's great too. Main thing is that it's grass-fed. That's important. You're going to have a much higher nutrition, and you're avoiding the bad stuff. That's in that factory farmed feedlot beef where they don't eat any grass at all. Oysters, another shellfish. Oysters have the most zinc of any single food in the world. Chickpeas, lentils, beans, this kind of legume area helps. Hemp seeds, sesame seeds, pine nuts, cashews, almonds. Raw, preferably grass-fed, preferably organic dairy, local organic eggs, and dark chocolate, all good sources of zinc. And as I said, the baseline for everybody supplementation-wise is trace minerals, B12. This globally supports the whole body with a very balanced trace mineral formula. It's been around for several decades. I believe it goes back to the 1950s. So it's got an unparalleled or very impressive history of use. And then using the food chelate, the rice chelate of zinc, it's not a synthetic amino acid chelate like most of them are, but it's a rice chelate, much superior, with liver built into it as the best multi-nutrient source and multi-mineral source. You add that if you're deficient at just 3 to 6 a day. By the way, in the psychiatric literature, it's very good evidence. I was speaking with a colleague. We were both speaking at the same medical conference, and he's a psychiatrist. And he says, yeah, I recommend zinc all the time to my patients suffering from depression because the literature says that zinc helps depression. And he's seen that clinically in his 30, 40 years of psychiatric practice, that adding zinc, not massive doses either, just modest doses, 20, 30 milligrams can really help. But again, always balanced with copper and iron. And you'll see exactly what's going on if you look at the hair analysis with those 3 minerals and all the other ones. So if you see this here, it's a great chart where you see zinc and its relationship to other minerals. It's really kind of cool. This is the wheel, the mineral wheel, and it shows you the relationships of minerals to each other. So just looking at zinc here, here's our buddy zinc, that's the subject here. Tremendous connections to a lot of different minerals, so relationships to several minerals, including here's our phosphorus and selenium. Oh, that's not selenium. Sodium, perhaps. And then here's iron, really important. Calcium, zinc and calcium, another connection there. And very important is the zinc to copper relationship. And notice that it's a two-way street. The copper helps the zinc helps the copper in terms of absorption, but also helping it to not become excessive and controlling the levels in the body so it doesn't become toxic or just excessive in some way. So just the basics of this, hair mineral analysis is a cellular reading. It's very stable. It's inexpensive. And as long as you're using the correct lab, and we use a lab in Phoenix, which is the best lab in the country. They've done over 4 million hair tests, closer to 5 million, I think, by now, but at least 4 million hair tests since 1974. They're really excellent. So it's inexpensive. It's stable. It's not like a saliva sample you need to overnight to the lab, that sort of thing. It's a very useful thing. Now, hair analysis, which is one of the methods they used in this study we're talking about today, will tell you what's going on now, but it's also prognostic because the body prioritizes the blood over the tissues, which means a problem will show up in the cells before it shows up in the blood. It'll show up in the tissues, which is the subject of a hair analysis, before it shows up in the blood. So a problem that shows up in a blood test is late stage. It's been there for a while. The body will sacrifice the health of the tissues and organs to prevent that, to keep that blood chemistry in a very, very narrow range. The body will sacrifice the health and nutritional status of your cells, tissues, and organs just to keep that blood test in that narrow range, that blood chemistry. So if it exhausts all of that and you still get a problem in the blood, you know it's advanced and it's been there for a while. Wouldn't it be better to get a cellular reading of before it becomes serious? And that's what you get in the hair analysis. So it'll tell us about mineral deficiencies, excesses, and toxic elements, which everybody needs to be tested for: aluminum, mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic. Very important to test for. And you also see here in this particular patient, there's a sample test here in the lower right. And we can see exactly what I'm talking about here in this section, where we can see here's the level of iron, which is low. This patient has copper toxicity, excess copper, and is kind of low normal on zinc. So this particular patient, we might check RBC copper, but they may not need copper supplementation, perhaps. But they definitely would benefit from zinc to get that copper under control, and from some iron for the same reason, to help balance that copper. So copper is usually deficient. In this particular patient, they were excessive, accumulated in the tissues. Now we can confirm that by looking at the blood and red blood cell copper. So that's very helpful. Very helpful. So, so looking at again the different minerals that we're looking at, and the hair analysis really gives you a lot of information. I'll just show you a little bit about what you're going to see in your hair analysis. Again, this isn't the only thing we do, but this is one method of testing among several. Very significant, and again, not for anything else. If you just did it for this reason, it would be wise, is to check for your toxic elements. A lot of folks have heavy metal toxicity. This is the gold standard for how to check for that. And then we look at the mineral ratios. This largely tells us about the endocrine system, the hormonal system, but beyond that as well. So we can get a feel for how well you're handling blood sugar, your thyroid, protein, adrenal, inflammation and vitality, and sex hormones. Here's that zinc to copper we were talking about. Very important. Now, some practitioners will look at serum levels. That's okay. That'll tell you about recent exposure, kind of what's happened recently. But the hair is much better to give you your chronic bioaccumulated status of heavy metals or nutritional minerals. So it's much superior to serum. The closest we can get to a good mineral test in the blood is most definitely the red cell RBC levels of the various minerals. So that's pretty important. So that's that. Now, what I'd like to do now, and you'll see when you get the test from our clinic, for example, or wherever, This is the requisition form. And make sure, and this is what we do with all of our patients here at the Gaeta Clinic for Chinese and Functional Medicine, is we do a profile 2, is the initial test for a given person. And then we'll often add a profile 5, which is a great diet plan, which gives you a personalized diet plan based on your unique mineral patterns, physiology, metabolic type, organ patterns, all kinds of things. And it's a good low glycemic kind of whole foods diet. So that's what the requisition form looks like. And that's a good thing to check. So back to this study, which is so amazing. We just covered esophageal and breast cancer. Now we're going to head over to liver cancer, which is a very, pretty serious condition. The liver is a very resilient organ. You can surgically remove up to 80% of it, and it'll grow back. So it's a very strong organ. It can take a lot, but it has its limits. And with the environmental toxicity and nutritional deficiencies that people have today, about 28% of the whole country has a fatty liver. That's insane. There's a lot of functional liver problems that, just create enormous problems with blood sugar and cardiovascular risk and other things. So in addition to breast cancer, there is a substantial body of evidence demonstrating an association between low zinc levels and liver cancer. They found that zinc concentrations in liver cancer tissue, so cancerous liver tissue, is significantly lower than in non-cancerous areas. And this is the kind of prognostic factor, part of it. Further reports showed zinc concentrations decrease as the degree of differentiation of liver cancer worsens. In other words, less zinc, worse liver cancer. So that's pretty remarkable. And zinc levels continue to decrease as the cancer in the liver progresses. Also, low zinc levels appear to correlate with poor outcomes in patients treated for liver cancer. This is a big deal. And what they found just in this study is that, zinc is broadly associated with a lot of different types of cancer for its cytoprotective and mechanisms and immune response and such, apoptosis, that it really relates to all cancer risk, not just the ones they looked at here, is the implication. And that's important because it's a simple way to increase your cancer resistance. Like, why not do that? Check your zinc, replenish it responsibly, make sure you're balanced with copper, make sure you evaluate your levels of everything, and correct it. It's not difficult. I've done this hundreds of times with patients over the last 33 years, thousands of times actually at this point. So zinc and copper is there, and that relationship. And what they also found in the analysis of prognosis, zinc levels correlated with hepatic reserve capacity. So the relationship between zinc and prognosis of liver cancer, in other words, what are your chances after you're diagnosed, is not only related to the prognosis of the cancer itself, but also to the prognosis related to liver reserve capacity. In other words, your organ reserve. How strong is your organ reserve? But wait, there's more. Zinc deficiency appears to play a role not only in liver cancer outcomes, but also in the risk of liver cancer development. That's astounding. They go through the details of that. Is remarkable. There's a correlation. Again, it's not necessarily causal, but it's a strong correlation. It's confirmed in multiple studies over many years. So, and what did they find? Folks with chronic liver disease who receive long-term zinc supplementation, which is what I'm talking about, everybody should do this, had a lower risk of developing liver cancer than patients who did not take zinc. Now, again, zinc must be optimized along with copper and iron. So we can look at ferritin, we can look at serum iron, along with, and the hair levels of iron as well. But this is very important. To conclude, these studies provide a strong argument for a key role for zinc in liver cancer development and progression. Very significant. Then they go on to lung cancer. Multiple studies support a link between zinc deficiency and lung cancer, and the association was extensively analyzed in 2 recent meta-analyses, which again is a study of studies aggregating tons of data to come up with more valid conclusions. So, and then they go into the details of that very significantly. Then they go on, in addition, remember we talked about fertility. It's not just fertility, it's gynecological cancer. Zinc deficiency has been well described in gynecological cancers. Well, by the way, it's also been well described in hormone problems, infertility, PCOS, uterine fibroids, all kinds of female and male sperm count, motility, morphology, and also low testosterone and androgens. Zinc relates to all of that in many patients. Is it every single case? No, but it's very, very well established as an association, at least, between all gynecological and reproductive issues in men and women, not just cancer. So this is just so incredibly important. Now, cancer, this is the third leading cause of death in the United States and is one of the leading causes of death worldwide, typically one of the top 2 with cardiovascular disease. Number 1 cause of death in America is the medical system, so that kills about 1 million people a year. It was confirmed in 2 separate studies in 2004 and 2011. Number 2 cause of death is cardiovascular disease, which is mostly preventable. That's about 850,000 deaths a year, despite lots of people taking the useless, harmful, toxic statin drugs. Number 3 is cancer. So about 650,000 people a year die of cancer. That's incredible. 1.4 million new cases diagnosed per year. It's not decreasing. This whole war on cancer has completely failed to improve outcomes in terms of preventing cancer. They've got better early detection. In some cases, they've got better treatment, but not very impressive. So, this is a simple thing that can really help. It's not the only thing, but it's one thing in reversing this epidemic of lifestyle-related disease, like cardiovascular disease and death, like cancer, like diabetes, like Alzheimer's, and other chronic conditions. This is one piece, not the only one, that is simple, effective, safe, easy, inexpensive to do. Remember, it's better to prevent than treat, and early treatment and prevention is way better than treating something after it's gotten really bad. So, let's just keep that in mind. So, back to the study. It's an incredible study. So, this is in gynecological cancer. The association between low zinc levels and cervical cancer was convincingly demonstrated. The reports on endometrial cancer and zinc was mixed, so kind of mixed evidence there. They weren't entirely sure. It wasn't as clear as, say, with esophagus and breast and liver and cervical, but there was some evidence there for sure. Then they found ovarian cancer patients have significantly lower circulating zinc concentrations compared with healthy individuals. Overall, the evidence strongly suggests that low zinc levels are associated with a range of gynecological cancer and, like I said, an interaction with copper, do not forget the copper, may also play a role. That's pretty big deal. Then they go to colon cancer. Colon cancer is very convincingly associated with an alkaline pH in the colon. The colon should be acidic with a pH of 5.5 to 6.5. As soon as it goes alkaline, the risk of colorectal cancer goes up quite a bit. And there's a very strong association with that. So that's the importance of eating lacto-fermented foods and having a healthy microbiome. That's a story for another day. This story is about zinc today. Colon cancer has also been reported to be associated with zinc deficiency. They did an observational study, reported a correlation between low serum zinc, again, not as good as RBC, but okay, and poor prognosis in patients with colon cancer, including metastasis and survival. That's pretty incredible. Then they looked at oral cancer. Notably, the association between zinc concentration and carcinogenesis, or cancer development, in oral cancer is different from that of other carcinomas. 2 recent studies revealed a link between zinc levels and oral cancer. So that's pretty significant. And more studies needed, that's always true. But that's pretty remarkable. Next was zinc deficiency and other cancers. Zinc deficiency has been reported in a range of other cancers. So they found relationships with prostate cancer and certainly with BPH, benign prostatic hypertrophy and hyperplasia. Zinc is the most important mineral by far for prostate health, big time. I believe that zinc, along with other appropriate supplementation, could really prevent a lot of the massive amounts of prostate cancer that men develop as they age. It's really much more likely if you live into your 70s and 80s that you're going to get prostate cancer than not. That's not necessary. That is preventable. Let me go into the details of that at cancercourse.com. So that was, pretty significant. Clear preliminary evidence of an association between zinc deficiency and various types of cancer. So then they get into measuring zinc levels in cancer. We've already talked about how to do that in the blood, RBC zinc, with the taste test, and most importantly, with the hair analysis. So then they get into zinc as a biomarker for cancer, which is incredible. Multiple studies have suggested that circulating zinc levels, again, ideally RBC, most of these studies use serum, could be used as a diagnostic biomarker for cancer in patients suspected of or being at risk of developing cancer. That's incredible. So one review found a relationship, direct link between zinc levels and the development of different cancer types, suggesting that this micronutrient has potential for use as a biomarker for cancer, while highlighting the interdependence of micronutrient levels, including, in this case, copper and iron. So that's pretty significant. So if you have a zinc deficiency, according to this paper, you have an increased risk of cancer. And how easy is that to fix? Very easy. In the diet and with correct, responsible, food-based supplementation. So pretty big deal. They found another review, low zinc levels in prostate cancer tissue. That's pretty significant. They suggest that urine zinc levels could be combined with other modalities to identify patients with prostate cancer. So that's pretty amazing. The study of zinc as a potential biomarker for diagnosing a range of cancer types is an idea that seems to be not only plausible, but also highly applicable. That's pretty amazing. Here's another thing to keep in mind. They point this out. I'm glad they pointed this out. It's extremely important to note that serum zinc levels fluctuate under a variety of conditions. By the way, RBC zinc levels do not, which is one of the big reasons why I don't use serum zinc, because it's all over the place. It's like serum glucose. It can change within minutes, whereas hemoglobin A1C is a much more stable 2 to 4 month average. Same thing with zinc. That's why I really don't use serum testing for any nutrients. I much prefer to use RBC levels for minerals when available. So there are variations, time of day, and alcohol consumption, steroid use, meal times. It's all over the place. So why do we not use RBC zinc? It is a more expensive test, but it's so much more reliable because the lifespan of a red blood cell typically is about 4 months. So you're getting a 2 to 4 month average of your zinc levels looking at RBC zinc instead of serum. And the best is to look at the hair. And I like to do both sometimes, although at the very minimum, the hair levels. Zinc levels, this is a prognostic biomarker. Hey, Mr. Patient, you have cancer. we're going to find out what your prognosis is, at least in part, one indication among many of what your prognosis is. And zinc levels have been proposed as a prognostic biomarker for predicting outcomes in patients with cancer. That's incredible. So they also suggest that zinc deficiency could serve as a preoperative indicator of infectious complications after removing the pancreatectomy in those patients. So very significant, very significant. Serum zinc levels may correlate with a range of outcomes in patients. So folks with a zinc deficiency, more severe liver fibrosis, more post-op complications, and worse overall survival. So that's a big deal. And a higher copper to zinc ratio was associated with improved survival rates. Again, don't forget copper, folks. That's important. Take your trace minerals B12, get your hair analysis, and you can look at RBC zinc and RBC copper in the blood test. Very significant. And we're going to put a link in the description for how to order your own blood test without a prescription. So that's pretty significant in folks in liver patients. Serum zinc levels reduced with chronic liver disease. Zinc deficiency might be a significant prognostic factor for survival in these liver cancer patients. So it's prognostic, which is amazing. And finally, this is the most exciting because this applies to everybody. Zinc is a potential preventative method for cancer. Wow. And this really should be front page news everywhere. This simple, cheap mineral, easy to test, easy to correct, with the diet, with appropriate food-based supplementation, can prevent cancer. And specifically by increasing your cancer resistance. It's really important. And they had a paper published a few years ago. Zinc supplementation appears to maintain liver function and decreased risk of liver cancer. That's incredible. And it goes on from there. That's just remarkable. Breast cancer, high zinc in the diet, reduced risk of breast cancer. I mean, that's incredible. So it goes on from there with the next section. They looked at an adjunctive treatment for cancer. Zinc supplementation has been suggested by several studies as a potential adjunctive treatment for cancer. And there were a series of papers that address this possibility. 2017 review presents compelling evidence that zinc treatment could help prevent the development and progression of prostate, liver, and pancreas cancer. A 2020 review points out the striking correlation between zinc deficiency and multiple cancer types. It's astounding. A 2021 review analyzed data from 19 publications that zinc could reduce toxicity incurred during radiation therapy, radiotherapy, in patients with head and neck cancer. That's remarkable. So there's certain studies that were negative studies. We have to look at the methodology there. But when you have overwhelming evidence, maybe they used the wrong type of zinc, maybe they evaluated it incorrectly, maybe they used the wrong dose, possibly too low of a dose, who knows? But when you have this much evidence supporting this idea, the negative studies really have to be critiqued carefully for methodological problems, what we call materials and methods, like how do they design the study? Because a lot of times these negative studies with herbs, with nutrition, and this is a nutritional subject, are just poorly designed. Not always, but often it is. Another study, evidence from several studies showing a positive effect of zinc supplementation in patients with various forms of liver disease, whether it's, could be a variety of things, cirrhosis or fatty liver, whatever it is, putting them at risk for developing liver cancer. That's remarkable. Together, these studies have highlighted promising preliminary indications that zinc supplementation could be a useful addition to cancer treatment regimens. That's amazing. Of course, as always, more study needed, more research needed. That's always the case. There's never a need. You never stop looking at a subject. More evidence is better. So to conclude, the extensive evidence demonstrating the prevalence of zinc deficiency in a wide range of cancer types suggests that zinc deficiency should be considered a relatively widespread feature of multiple cancers. The data suggest that zinc deficiency may be a potential biomarker for identifying patients at risk of developing cancer and predicting outcomes in patients with cancer, and even as a preventative, yay, that's everybody, or adjunctive, if you're doing whatever else, treatment for cancer, which is remarkable. And then they end with, more research needed, which is perfectly fine. So, wow, that's just remarkable. And I really encourage any of you who have not had a complete evaluation here at the Gaeta Clinic, please do so. There's two ways to do that. An initial evaluation includes a complete lab review, history, and care plan. Or you may just have some questions. Hey, I've got a few questions I'd like to ask you about, my health or somebody's health, or any suggestions you may have with nutrition and such. And then you just schedule a 30-minute Q&A consultation. But I really would suggest, if you haven't done it in the last year, just go to michaelgaeta.com. That's the website for the Gaeta Institute for Holistic Health Education and the Gaeta Clinic for Chinese and Functional Medicine, and schedule your initial evaluation soon, so that we can look at this area. This is one of many areas, and then do a complete, thorough evaluation to see how you're doing and address your health concerns using a natural healthcare holistic approach, which I've helped many, many thousands of patients with over the last 33 years of practice. And now I'm very much deeply involved in educating other practitioners. So if you're a health professional and you'd like to learn what I call natural functional medicine and other subjects related to clinical practice and success, just go to michaelgaeta.com. And you can view our courses. I do a weekly podcast on Mondays called Mondays with Michael. So please join us for that. michaelgaeta.com/MWM, which is Mondays with Michael. We just had our 180th show today with the great Robert Scott Bell. And we've had many wonderful guests over the last 3.5 years. So there's that. And come take a course. We've got amazing courses on holistic health, improving your patient care if you're a practitioner. And we have a functional medicine certification program in natural functional medicine for licensed health professionals called the Clinician's Mastermind Circle. So you can find out details about that. Again, michaelgaeta, Gaeta.com, or you can go directly to the page for cliniciansmastermind.com. And that's our functional medicine program. It's 1-year course, which is really astounding in improving your patient care and practice success. So I think that was about everything. Please read the notes, the description for this. And I'm going to build, you can look at, whenever you see this, go look for the page on michaelgaeta.com/zinc. I'm going to create a new web page. It may be up when you see this video, it may not, but at the very least, look at the description for links to everything we talked about, including this study. And at some point, we'll have a Zinc page built, michaelgaeta.com/zinc, which will give you, all of the information as well. And we'll keep that updated as new information and studies come up. So thanks for listening. If you have any questions, please email us at support@michaelgaeta.com. That's our email address, direct to our office, support@michaelgaeta.com. And our phone number is 303 442 2525. Seems kind of quaint to give a phone number, but I'm a little old school sometimes. 303 442 2525. I'm Dr. Michael Gaeta. And thank you for listening. And please apply this information. It's so important, so simple, so cheap, so useful, so safe. I mean, what else can you do that's this simple, validated, effective, inexpensive, than this to improve your cancer resistance? I mean, diet is primary for sure. And I've been a dietitian, nutritionist for quite a while, as well as an herbalist and acupuncturist. But this is such an important, simple thing to do to help yourself, help your family. If you're a health professional, please help your patients. You have very specific things to do. Just to review, do the zinc taste test, the hair analysis. Optional is RBC zinc and RBC copper, because don't forget that. And you'll get your hair and optionally red blood cell zinc to copper comparisons, and you'll know what needs to be addressed there. You can kind of customize your approach. This is just one part of nutrition, so I do recommend you get a complete evaluation to look at everything beyond zinc, but zinc is one really important piece. So thanks for listening. Again, michaelgaeta.com. I'm Dr. Michael Gaeta. Peace and success to you in the days ahead, and we look forward to seeing you in the consult. And we do consults for people around the world, not just in Colorado, but we have patients around the world that we work with. So wherever you are, all you need is a phone or a computer, either one, and we can help you out. So thanks for listening. Blessings to all, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.